With quiet spring night and open skies, a man uses a precision instrument and a strained eye to observe the bright body of Jupiter. That night, on May 9th, 1664, Robert Hooke took notice of a dot, or rather a spot, amongst Jupiter's heavenly bands. Although describing the direction and time it took to move across the planet, he did not draw any specific conclusions about its nature or what it may be. Despite this, many later astronomers would conclude Hooke's discovery was that of Jupiter's famous Big Red Spot, and even during Hooke's time, his considerable scientific clout would ensure he had a hefty validity to his claims of a spot on the planet's north equatorial belt. Listed as one of his greatest scientific achievements right next to cell theory, Robert Hooke is solidified as one of the greats. And yet, a 1987 article from the Journal of the British Astronomical Association, entitled The Discovery of the Great Red Spot of Jupiter, challenges what had been accepted as fact since the 19th century. The author, Marco Forlani, instead proposes Hooke's spot was not that of the famous red variety, but rather a shadow of the passing moon Castillo, which was known to have been in transit at the time. He further cites the vague noting of the spot's placement in the greater of three dark bands, which Forlani interprets as being the northern equatorial belt, this being opposed to its known location in the southern equatorial belt. More troubling was the lack of replication in Hooke's findings. Forlani goes on to assert that it was the also renowned astronomer Giovanni Cassini who first described what was undeniably a great storm on Jupiter in the summer of 1665, citing Cassini's letter addressed to the less renowned
Abbot Ottavio Falconieri.
In this letter, Cassini had determined the rotational period of a remarkable spot alongside its position in the southern band, and would confirm his results with multiple separate observations of said spot by himself, as well as other collaborators.
It's a gas giant. Like, there's a whole, the reason why it's got a mole is because, this big hurricane going on in the middle. But
maybe it's just a bunch of orange people running around.
Yeah.
In all fairness, it may be impossible to ascertain the true discoverer of the spot, as there was a notable gap in recorded observation of any blemish on Jupiter from 1713 until 1831. Although it's possible Hooke did truly first lay eyes upon the famous storm, it's equally possible both he and Cassini observed a different, now long evaporated cyclone or cyclones. Due to said gap in recordings, it's currently impossible to prove with total certainty that something as impermanent as a weather phenomenon has been raging for at least 350 years. Regardless of this doubt, why would most sources today make the claim that Robert Hooke is the discoverer of Jupiter's Great Red Spot, when Cassini's name could be thrown in with about as much certainty, or more? Perhaps it was a strange form of nationalism for the learned Englishman. After all, the Royal Society of London was eager to back Hooke's discovery of something significant. This wouldn't be dissimilar to the United States' insistence that they won the space race and definitely did not get their asses kicked by the Soviets for over a decade. While I think there is some validity to the idea that the English wanted science to be accomplished by the English for the sake of English pride, the simpler explanation is people like attaching any and all accomplishment or blame to one face. If Hooke was already popular and discovered the red spot first, it's just easier to give him all the credit over sharing glory, or worse, admitting he was wrong and everyone jumped the shark. The same year as Hooke's maybe, but probably not, discovery of Jupiter's Great Red Spot, across the channel in Normandy, revolution began in an unassuming abbey. Over the past decades, the Caesarean monasteries in the region began relaxing much of their stricter practices in accordance to the growing trend of secularism across much of Europe. However, one Armand
Jean Le Boutillier de Rancé
took issue with this apparent stray from God's light. He enforced strict penance in the form of manual labor for self-reliance, a scant diet with prolonged fasting, and verbal silence. While these reactionary reforms were hated by many, they were also popular enough to inspire many new followers to take up a name based off Jean Le Boutillier's monastery, La Trappe Abbey, thus calling themselves Trappists. Almost totally unrelated to these Trappists, the Transiting Planets and Planetesimals Small Telescope, shortened to also Trappist, is the name for two powerful robotic telescopes developed in the 21st century, located in Chile and Morocco, while controlled from the University of Liège in Belgium. Naturally being named by college students, The acronym is an allusion to Trappist beer, a beer produced by Trappist monks, those guys who are supposed to be all about humble penance. In 2015, one university team led by a Michel Guillen, a name which you should expect to hear frequently from now on, would famously reobserve the ultra-cool dwarf star 2MASS J2306298-0502285, which originally was discovered during the 2-micron all-sky survey. During this observation, the star was recategorized as TRAPPIST-1, probably because everyone was tired of having to repeatedly write a forklift serial number in their notes. And as everyone knows, around the star, 3-ish exoplanets would be discovered. These 3 planets, TRAPPIST-1B, C, and D, were reported as Earth-sized terrestrial worlds, with the first 2 being tidally locked. It was even proposed that TRAPPIST-1D, which received less continuous observation during the study, may be 2 planets, though that was concluded as unlikely in the paper. They were wrong. The international team of 15 would publish their findings in the May 2016 issue of Nature, and NASA would reveal the discovery of 4 more planets by the Spitzer telescope, and confirmed by others, during the February 2017 press conference. In both the paper and conference, the habitability of these planets was examined and discussed.
You're gonna die.
Yeah, you're
like
dead
5 seconds. You're just
actually.
dead.
Dead. You can't even live there.
No, you can't.
Bozo.
In much of the press covering the event, credit for the discoveries were and continue to be given to the previously mentioned Michel Guillen and his team. Heaven forbid you wanted to know who was or actually how many people were a part of this team, you'll just have to go and read the original paper. And the Spitzer researchers got it much worse. They not only confirmed the original team's findings, but 4 new worlds, one of which having a strong possibility to support life as we know it, and yet their accomplishments get attributed to the former camp. It's a repeat of Hooke's robbing of Cassini's triumph, except we aren't enough centuries in the future to have some educated contrarian post a scathing article in a well-respected scientific journal about the lies and half-truths everyone's been fed. Well, this time it's going to be different. Now you have a contrarian with no credentials and a poor understanding of proper sourcing here to tell you the truth. Not only the truth that the reporting on the discoveries of the TRAPPIST-1 planets is misleading, leaving out the contribution of the rest of Michel's team, including
Emmanuel Jaheen, Susan M. Lederer, Letitia Delrez, Julian DeWitt, Artem Burdanov, Valerie Van Grotel, Adam Bergasser, Amori HMJ Trio, Cyrielle Apidum, Bryce Olivier Demurray, Devendra K. Sahu, Daniela Bardales Gagliafi, Pierre Magain, and Didier Quelos.
As well as the Spitzer team of maybe the managers Sean Carey and Jim Ingalls, and the rest of those poor people I can't track down the names of. But a truth that goes even deeper.
1H where it's likely to be all ice. Are there creatures frozen in the ice?
True, that would be so good. We don't even have like official rovers, of course, because they're way too far. And
Right.
that would be so cool if we were to find like alien life on one of these planets. Like what you said, if they're like encapsulated in like ice caps or something, that would look so cool.
The real truth that must be known is that the exoplanet, TRAPPIST-1G, is an egg. This is undeniable and very much related to everything else I've said, with mountains and mountains of proof. Despite being larger than the Earth, the density of Planet G is between that of Earth and Mars, and currently has no direct evidence of an atmosphere, misguiding many to believe that the planet has a shell of ice encompassing a planet-wide ocean. While it does have a shell, this protective layer is not as simple as solid ice, but rather it's made up of an unknown material holding back a cosmic yolk. But what is this yolk nurturing is a question that can be answered by not looking at the planet, but its placement. Located at an average of 0.047 astronomical units from its cool star, the planet likely falls upon the outer edge of the habitable zone with an orbital eccentricity of only 0.00208, meaning it orbits in a near-perfect circle. This precision orbit aids in keeping the surface temperature stable year-round, no doubt intentional, as the egg was placed there to incubate at a specific temperature, to incubate something living.
So what are you saying? Are you saying like to pull the Earth in the opposite direction of its orbit?
Oh, no, 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 no. I think you're very mistaken.
All right.
So, gonna increase sun,
Uh-huh.
bigger sun.
Yeah.
So, we would get sucked in because the gravity is too strong. So that's why the whole treadmill and the tracks around the Earth to make it spin away from the sun, and it'll be like a tire,
Okay.
going away from the sun. But Saturn gets pulled into Jupiter. And Jupiter explodes.
All right.
There's no more Jupiter, and then we like decrease the size of. Oh, I didn't think about that. How do we decrease the size of the sun?
But the biggest single piece of evidence that the planet TRAPPIST-1G is an egg is that no major news publication has refuted me. News for the masses is not a collection of sources, but a report of absolute fact, and even if journalists must pass complex, unraveling events through a filter of their own limited understanding and further predigest them, putting them in simpler terms, fewer words, also the layman can best process the facts they are being presented with, their words must be more true than the events they're reporting on. The journalist has created a new truth, even if the attempt was to be unbiased, like a sort of macro-scale observer effect. By simply getting ahead of any articles confirming or denying the existence of Planet G as an egg, then my words are unchallenged. Like reports of Hook's Spot being published ahead of Cassini's Great Storm, or Mikhail Gillian getting his name listed before his peers in their shared paper. Through the power of being first and the less than stellar track record of scientific reporting, I can get this truth, this new truth, my truth, shared and accepted. But, in actuality, research is hard. Made evident by my inability to find a list of names for the Spitzer scientists, or the mind-numbing hours I spent scouring sources and links and looking over the most dryly worded scientific papers, I don't envy the people whose job it is to research and report on such things. However, as said, it is their job to extensively catalog and document these things before making a final report. A report which will be shipped out to the average consumer whose interest only brings them as far as skimming the article's headline. When these reporters fail to do their due diligence, there is more at stake than some unnamed team members or a long-since dead guy not getting their credit. Sometimes it becomes fact that TRAPPIST-1G is an egg. Too often has sloppy reporting had dangerous effects, pushing belief in cannibal cult pizza parlors, chemtrail mind control, and false toilet paper shortages, which go on to cause real toilet paper shortages, and honestly that was a rough couple of months. The point is, don't forget to cite that source. Don't leave out that date for brevity. Don't take another newspaper article's word as good enough. Don't report with the thought process of,
That looks so cool. And
I think the crazy thing about G is, and really about all of these planets,
yeah.
that like if you really think about it, we don't have pictures like you said. We found these using the transit system.
Right.
So, and obviously there's that theory out there saying that it's like you don't know everything about space. So there's obviously going to be some materials, elements, just different things that we haven't discovered yet. And I feel like this goes for all planets. Like this one, for example, G. There's 3D models out there generated by the computers, but we really don't know what this planet looks like for sure.
True.
So it could be an egg. It could straight up just be hollow.
Could just
Nothing.
Straight up an egg. Just
You
like
could
nothing
land on
else.
that surface and fall through the other side. There's nothing in there.
There's got to be a yolk in there.
It's got a core.
You said,
And that's the yolk.
and that's
exactly.
the yolk. All right, you know,
There
I
you
got
go.
it.
Exactly. That's the core. But it could be that. It's just like in the egg white. I mean, I'm just saying.
Dude,
G,
if it's if it's gonna be like that cool, like, isn't it just gonna be like super hard?
I mean, maybe, like, maybe not. You know. I digress.
We just gotta
Anyway.
drill, like, you know, the Journey to the Center of the Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Journey to the Center
yeah.
of the Yolk.